Hello, everyone. My name is Rob Collins, and I am the president of the Association of Postdoctoral Programs in Clinical Neuropsychology, also known as APPCN or APPCN, and I'm probably going to use both of those interchangeably throughout this presentation. And today I'm going to be presenting on preparing and applying for neuropsychology residency for the 2020 match. While the primary purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of the application process for resident applicants applying to APPCN member programs for the 2020 match, I also want to provide you with some additional information. I will briefly discuss the history of APPCN as an organization related to neuropsychology training, and we'll also discuss the relationship between APPCN and what is known as the match. I'm going to touch on the tangible benefits to training with an APPCN member program. And of course, for anybody watching this presentation, there are important dates that resident applicants must be aware of for the 2020 match cycle. And lastly, I hope to address some frequently asked questions related to the match process. I also want to mention that this presentation will differ slightly from the previous versions. This presentation is primarily directed at resident applicants for the 2020 match cycle. Previous presentations have touched on important documents related to training in clinical neuropsychology, and many of these documents can be found on the APPCN website. Dr. Heffelfinger's presentation for 2018 also provides an excellent overview of training history, neuropsychology competencies, and the neuropsychology training taxonomy document. Again, this presentation today is slightly different and is primarily directed at residents applying for the 2020 match cycle. But first, I'd like to provide you with a little information about myself. I'm the current president of APPCN. I'm midway through my term, and prior to serving as president, I served for 2 terms on the APPCN Board of Directors. Until recently, I served as the Neuropsychology Residency Director at the Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center in Houston, Texas, and I led that program through 2 specialty accreditations for APA specialty accreditation, most recently in 2018. Now, the current training director there, Dr. Pastorik, is a great leader, and that remains a great program, although I will admit to having a slight bias towards the Houston VA Medical Center. Currently, I'm in private practice with the Neurocognitive Specialty Group, and my practice is primarily related to a mix of clinical and forensic work at the adult level. I believe that a common question for many resident applicants is, what is APPCN and what is their role in postdoctoral training? I think that many neuropsychology trainees are probably unfamiliar with APPCN until it is time to apply to residency. But in fact, APPCN has been an advocate for quality training in neuropsychology since the early 90s. The group itself actually grew out of the Midwest Neuropsychology Consortium, and APPCN was a sponsor and participant in the 1997 Houston Conference on Specialty Education and Training in Clinical Neuropsychology. Obviously, the Houston Conference Guidelines remain an important document in neuropsychology training, and I do recommend that resident applicants familiarize themselves with the Houston Conference Guidelines. In addition to the Houston Conference Guidelines, there are other documents which are important for training in neuropsychology. Some of these are related to training competencies as well as the training taxonomy for neuropsychology. And references and links to this can be found on the APPCN website. Regarding the match specifically, in 2001, with probably a little under 60 programs, APPCN initiated a match process which was parallel to that which occurs at the internship level. For the APPCN match process was more than creating efficiency between matching programs and applicants. And instead, APPCN's position was that the match would provide a degree of protection for applicants who are vulnerable to programs that might exploit the uncertainty that applicants feel when they're trying to transition from the level of internship to the level of residency. In essence, we believe that the match allows for applicants to interview and meet with programs of their choosing without having to worry about pressures related to early offers and being unable to fully participate in an interview process which is developmentally meaningful. APPCN programs have also agreed to abide by the rules of the match, and this provides a greater degree of fairness for applicants. Why choose to attend an APPCN member program for neuropsychology residency? First and foremost, APPCN represents the best training programs in the United States and Canada. APPCN member programs have agreed to provide a training experience which is consistent with the Houston Conference guidelines. They have agreed to provide a training experience which is consistent with the training taxonomy for neuropsychology training at the residency level. And these programs provide training experiences which provide foundational competencies in neuropsychology. For APPCN membership, these programs have to submit a self-study, which is subsequently reviewed by a panel to ensure that these programs have the resources and other training needs in place to offer the type of training experience which will provide adequate preparation for future board certification through ABPP. The director of the APPCN program is required to be board certified, and as I mentioned previously, these programs agree to follow a code of conduct with regard to recruitment and fellowship experiences. These programs also have access to resources which are not available to non-member programs. These include oral and written examinations, video didactics, program consultation. And when you graduate from an APPCN program, your application materials for ABIP are expedited. They're fast-tracked. APPCN also takes seriously issues related to diversity in all of its forms. We believe in promoting and working towards equal opportunity for training for individuals from diverse, underrepresented, and discriminated against backgrounds, including race, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, first-generation college graduates, and international students. So what is the match? As I mentioned earlier, the match was implemented by APPCN in 1992 and is administered by the National Matching Service. This is in fact the same service that manages the psychology internship match, and the processes are quite similar. The main difference, of course, is that the APPCN match occurs between APPCN member programs and resident applicants who apply to these programs. Information related to the match can be found both on the APPCN websites, and it's hyperlinked here, as well as on NMS and the Nonmatch websites. And you can follow the links in this presentation. Now, obviously, if you are viewing this presentation, you are already aware of many of the important dates for the 2020 match cycle, but I want to go over these starting back in September. So in September, APPCN member programs began to receive information from the National Matching Service related to the upcoming match. These materials are related to, are you going to participate in the match? How many positions are you going to offer? And in completing those materials, those programs then every single year have to sign and agree to abide by the rules of the match. Similarly, in this time frame, approximately, resident applicants can also begin to sign up for the to register for the match process. By approximately the 30th of November, the National Matching Service then publishes online the list of programs that will be participating in the match. And I'm sure that the viewers of this presentation at this point have probably reviewed the list of programs published by NMS. What you should know, though, as with each year, APPCN brings in new programs, many of them towards the end of the year, and I can tell you that there have been 2 or 3 which have been added to the NMS list over the past 30 days. So if you haven't checked recently, you might recheck the list of programs that are participating. It is quite possible that there are a few that were not there previously. It is also important to note that participating programs can advertise their residency programs in a variety of different ways. and that the application processes and due dates for application materials tend to be fairly site-specific. The next important date to consider are related to the 2020 INS conference, which occurs in Denver, Colorado, February 5th through the 8th. When you register for that conference, it will be important for you to indicate that you are a trainee who will be interviewing for postdoctoral residency. And this will allow us to pick up your badge. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But the conference itself, while it runs from February 5th through the 8th, and interviews will occur during that time frame, historically, the Tuesday prior to the beginning of the conference, and so that's going to be February 4th, is actually a day when many interviews are conducted. In fact, on February 4th, or the day prior to the beginning of the conference, APPCN hosts the APPCN Breakfast, which is open to registered APPCN applicants as well as registered or APPCN member programs. This is a good place to have any last-minute questions answered from APPCN officers or board of director members. And then also, because this will occur in the morning, we will be able to pick up your conference registration badge, because the conference registration won't open up until late on that evening on Tuesday. But you'll be able to pick up your badge, and then the member programs can also pick up their badge, and it helps to identify one another for those who are interviewing on that Tuesday. And again, while many of the interviews will occur on Tuesday, not all interviews occur on Tuesday. And in fact, the interviews will occur throughout the week, and the actual times for the interviews are going to be negotiated between program and applicant. Now, shortly after everybody returns from the INS conference, on February 12th, both applicants and programs are required to submit their rank order list. So that's a very fast turnaround, and it's also the nice benefit of participating in this process. You have all of the interviews, which are centralized and occurring basically from the 4th through the 8th, and then that gives you a few days after you get back from conference to create your final rank order list, and then you will submit your rank order list. It needs to be submitted by February 12th. The following week, on February 19th, the results of the match are released to both applicants and to program directors. I need everybody to keep all of these dates in mind. It's a reasonable question for applicants to ask, how many positions are offered in the match? What is my likelihood of matching just based on these numbers? And so I do have some numbers for the total sites that are registered as of November 11th of this year. For the 2020 cycle, there are 81 sites which are registered for the match. This includes 71 member programs and 10 programs which are non-member programs but are participating in the match. A non-member program participating in the match has not undergone a panel review or a self-study, but they have agreed to abide by the match rules, and they have also agreed that they're going to provide a training experience which is consistent with APPCN standards. But please understand, these are not APPCN reviewed or APPCN member programs. Among the 81 programs which are offering positions in the 2020 match, there are 124 positions which will be offered. Relative to last year, this represents about a 20 position increase. And it's also possible that there will be more than 124 positions which are offered, because this represents numbers as of November 11th. And as I'd mentioned, there were a couple of late additions occurring late November and early December for APPCN membership. Now, ultimately, the probability of your matching to program depends on a number of different factors, and one of the factors is related to the total number of applicants. Because the registration for the match for applicants rolls up until mid-January, we don't have a total number of applicants who have registered for the 2020 match. Historically, anywhere between 140 to 160 applicants applicants will register for the match. And then of that number, approximately 30 or more will withdraw for a variety of different reasons. And so that gives you a ballpark estimate of the total number of positions offered, as well as the total number of applicants historically who will be participating in the match. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. And what I want to do for this last portion of the presentation is to discuss strategies for application, answer some questions which are frequently asked, about match time, and then also provide some additional information for international students. Regarding strategies, and when considering neuropsychology at the individual level, each resident applicant needs to have a good understanding of the programs which are available, which are offering positions, what training opportunities are offered at those training programs, and importantly here, how do those opportunities fit with your training experiences, with your training needs, and with your long-term goals. And again, I want to encourage everybody to review the APPCN website for a list of member programs and links to their training brochures. And I similarly encourage resident applicants to look on listservs and other websites which might have information regarding non-member programs that are of sufficient quality. And you can find links and information from regarding some of those programs, both for the Society for Clinical Neuropsychology, the SCN website, and APPC also has information regarding neuropsychology residency programs, some of them which are non-match. Now, it is true that not all neuropsychology residency programs are APPCN member programs, but the majority of neuropsychology residency programs are APPCN member programs. APPCN currently has 97 member programs, and we continue to experience growth. And I have no doubt that there are some high-quality, non-member APPCN programs, but I do advise applicants that there is much more variability in program quality on the non-member side, and resident applicants applying to those programs, you need to do your homework. Now, once an applicant has determined which programs they will be applying to, if they have additional questions, they should feel free to reach out to those training programs and those training directors directly. Just like an applicant feels a degree of uncertainty in this process, I can tell you that training programs and training directors do also. And they are typically happy, and I can tell you personally, I was always pleased when prospective applicants would reach out to me with questions, because that demonstrates to me that there is more than a passing interest in my program. Now, a common question amongst applicants is, how many programs should I apply to? Well, there is no magic number, but APPCN's historical data indicates applying to 8 to 15 programs is an optimal target, and that with applying to fewer than 8 represents a increased chance that you're not going to match, and applying to more than 15 for most people does not really convey any added benefit. So somewhere between 8 to 15, that is going to be your sweet spot. I'm sure that anybody, again, watching this presentation has already started preparing and maybe even has already sent out CVs. But regarding your CV, please take a double and then a triple look. Make sure that it is accurate. Make sure that it accurately conveys your training experiences in a clear manner. And while there is no perfect format, I do recommend that resident applicants try to obtain CV examples from residents who have successfully navigated this process already. You're also going to be challenged with finding a way to clearly highlight your neuropsychology training experiences without embellishing these experiences. Remember, your materials are going to be reviewed by seasoned board-certified training directors, seasoned neuropsychologists, who would be able to suss out such embellishments. Also, and not unrelated, when listing your publications, Many programs prefer to see that peer-reviewed public articles are separate from abstracts, published abstracts in book chapters. They represent really a different level of rigor. Regarding your letters of recommendation, and no doubt at this point that you have worked with many training supervisors and you will have to select from these individuals carefully. Typically, residency programs want to see letters from individuals who know you well and who have worked with you directly. This would include your psychology or neuropsychology mentor in graduate school, your dissertation chair if this is not your mentor, and internship supervisors who can speak to your proximal competency and necessary growth areas. It does help to have letters from board-certified neuropsychologists, but it is not required. Some sites might require work samples, and while it is appreciated that the work samples you are providing represent a supervised product, it is also important to provide a work sample which you believe thoroughly represents your work. Again, seasoned professionals will review your work sample product if it's required, and it is quite likely that they're going to ask additional questions to get at your knowledge about this case on a variety of different levels. All of the sites that you're applying to are going to require a statement of interest, and you need to make sure that your statement of interest applies to the program that you're applying to. I'm not saying that you have to have a tailored statement of interest for every site, but as a training director, every year it has not been uncommon to see a generic statement of interest which didn't strongly apply or fit with the program that the applicant was applying to. Or it wouldn't be uncommon to have a statement of interest which accidentally lists incorrect activities or incorrect personnel for that particular site. So again, I'm not suggesting that you have to create a highly individualized and personalized statement of interest for each site, but what I am telling you is that in your statement of interest, you want to make sure that the site reviewing your statement feels as though it were personalized for them, if that makes sense. And again, this last part, proofread. It is essential that you proofread your materials before a program has an opportunity to meet you, before a program has an opportunity to see what a great applicant you are, what a great catch you are. They only have your written materials to form an opinion. And so those written materials matter. They're very, very important. So please, please, please proofread. What I want to do next is cover some of the common questions that arise each year as related to the match. We list these frequently asked questions for the match and other aspects of neuropsychology training on the APPCN website, and I really do encourage you to visit our fact section here. And additionally, there's a fact section on the NMS website that is specifically related to the match algorithm. You should go there, you should watch that video. It is quite informative. So the first question that I'd like to address is, what is the difference between APA specialty accreditation and APPCN membership? Are there consequences for attending one and not the other? First, APPCN membership is not the same as a program obtaining specialty accreditation through the APA Commission on Accreditation. While APPCN membership requires a self-study process and a review, adherence to organizational rules and guidelines, this does not represent an accreditation process. APPCN is not an accrediting body. APPCN has no regulatory authority over member programs beyond ensuring that those programs adhere to organizational rules and guidelines. And we do follow that quite carefully, and we have removed programs from APPCN for not following rules and guidelines. Specialty accreditation through the APA is something quite different, and it is arguably a much more rigorous process. APA accreditation at the residency and also the doctoral internship level means that those programs are going to be held accountable for outcomes occurring both within the training program at a proximal level as well as distally with long-term outcomes and employment. Basically, what I typically tell people is that APA ensures that there is a degree of truth in advertising. You say that you're going to do this in terms of your training, and then they want to see the data that's associated with that. And that is a good thing for programs to have, although it is pretty uncommon. As far as consequences, in my opinion, if you can attend either an APPCN member program or a specialty accredited program in neuropsychology, both are excellent options. And I would also add that there are a large number of APPCN programs which have achieved specialty accreditation. The next question, which is not uncommon, do I have to interview at INS? Is there an advantage to interviewing? Oh, excuse me, I lost this here. Is there an advantage to interviewing on-site? There are actually many reasons why applicants would be unable to interview at the INS conference. And in fact, there are actually many times when programs are unable to attend INS to interview and recruit. But programs are expected to make a good faith effort to attend INS in order to interview. The rationale behind this is this provides a majority of applicants an opportunity to conduct multiple interviews in one setting and then to avoid the travel costs that are associated with applying to multiple sites. There are, however, times when applicants would be unable to attend INS for a variety of different reasons. In those cases, it is strongly recommended that applicants reach out to those sites that they're applying to and explain their circumstances. I would be very surprised if you did not receive an invitation to interview via telephone, via Skype, or even on-site. Now, is there an advantage to interviewing on-site? Some programs may ask that applicants come and visit on-site, and whether it conveys an advantage or not, I'm not entirely sure. But it does demonstrate a degree of interest, and it's always good for an applicant to see the resources which are actually there and get a sense of what training looks like in the actual training environment. So there is an advantage in the sense that you have increased knowledge, but I'm not so sure that interviewing on site conveys an actual match ranking related advantage. But if you are unable to interview at INS, those programs are going to be able to offer you different alternatives to interviewing at INS, and they should be able to take care of that. Next question. Do I need to complete requirements for the doctoral degree in order to apply to the residency program? It is important that resident applicants check with the individual programs for site-specific requirements. But you should only apply to a residency program if you will complete your degree requirements before the start date of training. Many programs will accept a resident application even if they haven't completed their dissertation or even if they have remaining coursework, but that is done so with the understanding that those requirements are going to be completed prior to starting the residency. For most applicants, the major unmet degree requirement is their dissertation. Now, programs can ask applicants specific questions about the status of their dissertation. You should be prepared to answer these questions. For example, if the data are collected, is there a defense date which has been proposed? Has it been proposed? If you have not completed your dissertation, please have your director of training at your graduate program complete the doctoral verification form, which can be found on the APPCN website, and you should include it with your application to all programs. I want to address two more questions before moving on to comments related to international students. A very, very common question and a process that some individuals will have to navigate has to do with receiving a non-match offer. So if this applies to you, and this applies to individuals, resident applicants, who are applying to both APPCN programs and programs outside of the match. So if this applies to you, it is quite possible that you will receive a non-match offer prior to completing interviews that you already have scheduled with other programs. If this happens in this scenario, then you have to make a decision as to, am I going to remain in the match? Am I going to be able to complete the remaining interviews versus going ahead and accepting a preemptive offer? I do want to caution applicants that some non-APPCN programs will pressure applicants to make decisions regarding accepting an offer and not allow them to consult with others. It's quite possible that some of these programs could require the applicant to make a decision either on the spot or during a very restricted period of time. Now, this does not apply to all non-APPCN programs, but I can tell you as the president and a long-serving member in APPCN, this occurs every single year. This activity exploits a power differential which occurs between the program and the uncertainty for the applicant. It's predatory, and anybody receiving such an offer or entertaining an offer should understand that this could represent a characteristic of the training program at that particular site. So again, do your homework and be thoughtful. Nevertheless, there are applicants who will receive non-match offers from quality, competitive programs. And if this happens, we do have some recommendations. First, if this happens, you need to consider how are you going to rate this program. And this doesn't just apply to non-match programs, it applies to all programs. And I'm sure that as you are creating your list of programs that you are going to apply to, that you've already begun to create a rank order list. You need to figure out where that non-match program falls on your rank order list. You also need to make sure that you have sufficient information at that point when you receive an offer in order to make your decision. If you're not ready to make your decision, then I would strongly advise that you tell them, I'm not ready to make my decision. If you're not interested in the program, then it's simple. You can just tell them, thank you for your interest, but you're going to remain in your match. But if you're interested in the non-match program, and you're also interested in other APPCN programs, we envision 3 scenarios which could play out. The first scenario is really very straightforward. You receive an offer from a non-match program, and that is your most preferred program. So you should accept that offer. But when you accept that offer, it is important for you to understand that you need to make sure that you withdraw from the match. If you, by chance, have submitted a rank order list already, you need to withdraw from the match and remove your rank order list. If you don't, and you still go through the match, then you are considered as being part of the match, and that is a binding process, so that is on you. But it's pretty easy to take care of. In the second scenario, an applicant who participates in the match is interested in the match, several match programs, but is also interested in a non-match program. And their rank order list for their non-match program, that non-match program is at number 3 or 4 or lower. In this scenario, what we encourage you to do is to negotiate with the non-match program. You should let them know, you should let the non-match program know that you remain interested in their program, and you want to know if they can commit to holding your offer until the match results are announced. And in doing so, if they agree to hold your offer, you are going to agree to them that you would not rank programs that would fall lower than them on your list. So for example, this is how this would work. If you received an offer from a non-match program and you had them ranked on your rank order list at number 4, then what you can tell them is that I'm going to, if you hold my program for me, I'm going to rank only programs 1 through 3 on the rank order list. We're going to wait to see how it plays out in terms of the match. And the lowest that you would fall on your rank order list would be to number 4. And that is to say that if you were not matched to 1 through 3. Then after the match results are announced, you would then accept the number 4 offer. If you do this, it is strongly encouraged that you get their program, the non-match program's commitment in writing, and they will probably request the same from you. But if you are able to negotiate this process, this option then represents your best interests. Your best interests are being served because you're able to consider all of your training opportunities according to your true preferences. And ultimately, this is kind of what this is about. The last scenario applies if you receive an offer from a non-match program that represents your number 2 ranking, and your top choice is an APPCN member program. In this scenario, the applicant can approach their number 1 rank site, that's the APPCN site, and inform them, hey, you're my preferred site, but I've received an offer from my second tier, ranked program, and they're not participating in the match. At this point, the APPCN program director can tell you if they plan to rank you high enough so that if you rank them number 1, you're guaranteed to match. They can provide you with this information, but not much more. Thus, when you receive an offer from an outside offer before the match from your second choice, again, we encourage you to contact your preferred APPCN program, inform them of your situation. It can provide you with additional information. I also want to note that with this last scenario, we are not saying that if you receive an offer from a low-ranked program, you can use that information to see where you stand with other programs. This last scenario should only occur if you receive an offer from your second choice, which is a non-APPCN program. Otherwise, this scenario does not apply. And then lastly, I just want to touch on the consequences for participating in the match and then reneging on the match outcome. If you're registered for the match and you submit a rank order list, participate in the match is considered binding. If you've submitted this, you are bound to the results. Applicants and programs must accept the match results just at the internship level. Failure to do so for both applicants and for programs would be viewed as unprofessional to the larger neuropsychology community, which you are ultimately part of, and there could be negative professional consequences. Lastly, if you are an international student who completed doctoral training outside of the United States or Canada, you are strongly encouraged to contact individual training directors to confirm that they are able to accept international students. I would also recommend further discussion with these training directors regarding any previous challenges that international students may have faced at their site. It is possible that you will have to initiate verification of your doctoral degree either through the World Education Service or the Comparative Education Service. Applicants should also prepare to have their transcripts and letters of recommendation translated to English, and it is possible that an applicant may need to demonstrate English proficiency for the site prior to starting the residency. For international students who completed doctoral training inside of the United States or Canada, but who require a visa, you may need to work with your doctoral university, your graduate program, to determine if your current visa will cover you, and if not, you need to prepare to follow up with the appropriate organizations to determine what your options are. If you have family, you are encouraged to further explore whether visas are required for family members. It may also be important to research licensing requirements if you can envision where ultimately you want to live or where you would prepare to be or prefer to be licensed in terms of which state. And finally, I want to thank everybody who took the time to view this presentation. We certainly understand that the interview and match process can be anxiety-inducing, but we would also encourage you to take a moment to appreciate what it has taken to get to this point in your training. You are in the rarefied air, and you should give yourself a pat on the back. Beyond that, we hope to see you bright and early on February 4th for the APPCN breakfast, We will send out an announcement with the time and the meeting locations and also locations of the different meeting rooms sometime in January. And we will be available on site to answer any last-minute questions that might arise. Thanks and congratulations again on getting to this point in your academic training.